everybody, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing very well. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about Miss Mona yet again, because now that I'm really assessing things, I really think it was obvious that Mona was A, and I truly don't understand how the girls didn't know that Mona was A. I'm watching Pretty Little Liars through, the rewatch, the monthly rewatch actually, and I'm just looking at everything, and obviously looking at stuff after reveals is a very oh yeah, it's actually really obvious, but truly looking at things, truly from the bottom of my heart, these girls, do you know what I mean? So I think more looking from just a audience point of view with clues, like for example, in the first episode when we see Mona texting underneath the desk when Arya receives the first A message, I think rather than looking at those type of clues, it's more the clues for the girls that I think were just very, very obvious about who was A. And obviously the writers, you have to prolong this stuff. Obviously this is like, they couldn't suspect Mona because it was Mona, so we can't just finish the show so quickly. Do you know what I mean? We're having some fun, guys. We're just analysing it. That's truly all we're doing. I think the biggest thing when they were looking at suspects is they were kind of looking at reasons why people would be doing things. Like, for example, Ian, the whole affair with Spencer, and they knew he had something going on with Allison, things like that. However, I think Mona probably had one of the best motives to be A. She was so tormented by Allison and the girls for so long. Anyone who went through that type of trauma from people would want to get their own kind of back on Allison. I'm gonna put my microphone down because I don't want to hold it. Okay. Like, of course Mona would want some type of revenge because of everything she went through. We are shown pretty much from a long period of time this was taking place, and Mona had to go through a lot of transition to kind of stop that. And I think although Mona made the transition into becoming popular seem really easy because we didn't see the transition, it actually would have taken a lot from her mentally and physically to be doing things like she would have been doing. So the motive, first off, is very much there, and no one for so long was like, maybe, quite maybe, Mona might have done it. Let's raise the question. Do you know what I mean? But then we also talk about what the texts kind of were, the kind of language that A use. So for example, with this CC being A, the language that was used by this A, I feel like kind of fits CC and the kind of not brains that she had, but just like her presence, I guess, and just her overall vibe, that's kind of perfect to her. However, some of the messages that Mona's A sent to the girls, I think were the most obvious type of messages ever. Let me read some of them out loud, just so we can get a good example. Of course, we have the famous, call off your techno boy toy or the police are gonna find what your mum keeps in the lasagna box. Iconic. No, it is iconic. It is. And then we also have things like break up Hannah and her hottie, or go back to being a junior high naughty. Now, this is straight up Mona language, and they didn't even try to hide this on the show. Obviously for the audience it's kind of like a clue thing, but I'm like, how did the girls not put two and two together? Do you know what I mean? This is so obviously Mona. The language of these text messages, it is prime Mona. It's like, she literally talks like that. So I'm like, how did the girls not clock on to anything like that? Hello? Like, the next thing I want to bring up, Mona hacked kind of the school system right in front of Emily. Look, I know Emily is not the sharpest tool in the shed. Bless her, she tries. No, she really, really does. However, like, I'm sorry, if I'm witnessing someone do this, I'm like, wow, you live a double life. What else could you be doing? And if I'm being blackmailed by someone like that, I don't care who you are, we are going to be, everyone's a suspect under my watch until they're not a suspect. One of my favorite tweets is, a man should start off in jail and prove himself out of it. I'm getting those vibes from, like, how I would view the situation. And I'm seeing someone who wouldn't, okay, not to judge a book by its cover, but Mona by cover wouldn't be for me, oh, she can hack systems and computers and whatever. It would more be, wow, what else are you hiding if you can do this type of vibes? Do you know what I'm trying to say? But she also admitted to having, like, all of the girls' personal files before Alison went missing. Hello? Ring-a-ding-ding-ding. Like, what's going on, guys? Like,
met him in February, and in March he needed money.
Yes.
Okay. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. That's a bill.
Hello, everyone. Like, what are we doing? Like, that is so crazy to me. Like, what do you mean Mona is saying that in front of you? And no one is like, guys, hold on a minute. Hello? I also want to talk about Camp Mona, because that was a big thing that happened. That was when someone was spying on Arya and Ezra, when Hannah got run over. Kind of forced these girls to go to this camp, and it's like, this whole thing has been set up. Of course, it's disguised as like a birthday thing, but this whole thing has been set up. Mona is the organizer. She makes that very, very clear, and so many bad things happen at this camp. So, like, it just, worst camping experience ever. And once again, no one kind of seems to clock that Mona was the organizer of this. Maybe she is letting on more than she knows, especially because kind of forced them to go to this camp. So that for me is another red flag of, like, okay, that's a little bit suspicious. That's a little bit, you know, it always for me comes back to motive. Like, the liars really didn't think that Mona would have a motive for being I'm like, I feel like they suspected everybody that Alison kind of bullied, Lucas, Paige, but when it came to Mona, no one really batted an eyelid. And to me, I'm just like, okay, like, I understand the way they went around with Mona was they really kind of made her dumb. So we always had this thing of her being dumb, and we'd get flashbacks of, you know, we know she's very smart, she's very capable, and after she's we know what she can do. It all goes down to the writers being very clever with making her seem very dumb and very kind of like timid. Even just like the actress who plays her, she's short, she's very small, she's like, you know, so you wouldn't really suspect someone like that to be So the writers were very clever with casting, with writing and things like that. And it's kind of similar with what happened to Alison in a way, where before Alison went missing, she was very, very smart. The trickery that she did, the manipulation that she did, the lies that she had, she was very, very smart. And I feel like when she came back, she was very dumb, I'm gonna say it, very naive to a lot of things. It is just like a completely different person. With Alison, it just didn't work. With Mona, it really, really worked very well. But I'm still like, why did the girls not have any suspicion? Nothing. And this kind of always comes back to Alison, because I think it kind of answers itself in, I don't think the girls really understood that they were being bullied by Alison, so therefore I think it was hard for them to look outwards and realise that actually other people were being bullied by Alison as well. And I think Mona was probably one of them. And I think because Mona became friends with Hannah, it was a thing of like, oh, we're moving on from that. You know what I mean? It kind of strikes me because whenever we have a suspicion with a character, we always talk about their past history with Allison. Like Jenna, for example, we learned that Allison and Jenna were kind of at logheads from the start, really. So we talk about their history, the history with Noel and Allison and things like that, and Lucas and Allison. So then when it comes to Mona, I'm like, why are we failing to acknowledge kind of that? As like a suspicion thing. Obviously the writers are doing it because they don't want us to see that Mona is A, but Mona is A in the books. Shock, surprise. So it's not like the audience had no idea. Of course they didn't follow like everything in the book, but I'm like, yeah, I kind of wish prior to Mona being revealed as A, we had that type of like exploration of their history, because then I think we get a real sense of like what's going on. I think also Mona getting texts from A, I actually think makes her more suspicious, because at that point no one else really got messages from A apart from Allison's friends. So it's kind of like, why is Mona being brought into this? And I would get suspicious kind of straight away, especially because Mona wanted to be very popular, wanted to kind of be like Allison, looked up to Allison, so she wants to involve herself in these things. But it's actually like, to me that was a really weird, I didn't read the books before I watched the TV show, sorry, but to me that was a thing I was like, okay, interesting. Right? Because it's kind of a thing of like, okay, but why Mona? Why not like Lucas or Paige or Noel or even like Ezra or whatever? Why would it be Mona of kind of all people? You know? So I get the whole writing process. I get the entire kind of like, we can't make it too obvious. But I'm like, the girls themselves, how did they not have any type of suspicion about like what's going on? Why is like Mona always, because that's another thing. I feel like none of the liars other friends really got involved in the group as much as Mona. I don't really remember any that was really like in, but Mona was always kind of like in and out with the girls here and there. Always got a lot of kind of screen time, especially season 2, and would just say some like weird kind of one-liners and things like that. So I'm like, how did the girls, especially Spencer is very, very clever. Of course Spencer worked it out at the end, but like that's the entire reveal. Spencer is very, very clever, and if Emily didn't clock on about hacking into the school system and having files on everybody, surely Spencer would have been like, yeah, that is weird. You know what I mean? And like I said, the history with Allison and how people don't really clock on to that too. I understand it was kind of a thing of, you know, Mona became friends with Hannah, so then by kind of default, Hannah, you know, is like, oh, she's trustworthy, she's so fine, blah, blah, blah. But through the show, a lot of the people who are closest to the liars are the ones that aren't trustworthy. We explored that a lot in season 1 and 2 about the people closest to you, but also you're being blackmailed by a stalker who knows all of your secrets. I would be on such high alert of everyone right now. To me is suspicious. I need to look out for everybody. It's not a thing of like, I don't know, it's not a thing of like, let's leave our guard down and, you know, she's friends with her so we can be friends with her. It's such a thing of like, no, I'm looking at everyone right now. And just the failure to look at the history with Allison and Mona and just everything that kind of transpired, and instead focused on other people that also had their motives, but I don't know, it was a bit iffy here and there. It's a bit weird. No one really suspected Mona, which then obviously the audience is like, okay, it's not going to be Mona. It's like with the whole Cece thing, when we saw Cece dressed in the black hood, we were like, oh, it's not going to be Cece then, because they've just shown us Cece in a black hood. Like, why would they do that? Which I actually really liked. I liked that writing thing on that. But I kind of wish we focused more on Mona and the girls is like kind of suspicion here and there, and like there would have been a fallout from that, and just like, I don't know. I think obviously Mona would have covered her tracks really well because she's very smart. She knew what she was doing. But there's still the motive that everybody knows, the kind of elephant in the room of Alison tormented the girl so much. Like, hello? Ding ding ding, like, guys. So yeah, my overall thing is just like, how did the girls just not know Mona was A? I feel like it was very very like in your face, and also like Mona would also kind of listen in a lot on conversations. I feel like that was a very known thing too. So I don't really know what that's about. Hey ho, hey ho. So that is it for this video. I would love to hear your opinion down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.